Is someone who has been part of it all, Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democrat who represents Illinois' 5th District and serves on the House Intelligence Committee. We also invited Adam Kinzinger, the only Republican member of Congress in the Chicago area, but he was unavailable. Welcome back, Congressman.
Glad to be here.
So, the judge in Washington, not very long ago, just said Don McGahn doesn't have immunity. He's got to testify. Is he going to be, are these hearings right back up in action, and will he be there?
Well, this is the second ruling now that says there is no absolute immunity, which is the obvious choice here. To think that the President of the United States has absolute immunity over congressional oversight would be a devastating ruling against the Constitution. How they proceed from here, we'll see. The report is being prepared, and we're talking about how articles might move forward.
But you've got maybe Don McGahn, who is the counsel to the president. Isn't that going to do a rush job on that, and the report can wait?
You can do that with a lot of folks, but we can't wait for them forever. I mean, in the meantime, would you like Mulvaney? Would you like Pompeo? Would you like Bolton? Certainly, but you can't play their game. Time is of the essence to a degree. So we continue to do the investigation. We're getting documents. If there are opportunities, there will be more depositions and conceivably more hearings. But first, what are in the documents? What are we learning, and how do we proceed from there?
So even before you get to McGahn, once this judge has ruled, you get documents, and then you do a deposition, and then he maybe testifies?
Depends on what we learn from those documents. You know, McGahn is important, but I think for a lot of folks, Bolton would be very interesting. His attorney is certainly teasing the issue that they know more. And my response to that is, if you know more, this is when it matters, right? Are you selling books? Are you trying to tell the American people what happened?
Is that what you think he's doing? He's going to go sell books and not testify?
There is no reason, especially after this ruling, for him to not come testify. And if he was offended as he was, he stopped a meeting. He said Rudy Giuliani was a hand grenade. He called this scheme in Ukraine a drug deal. If that's how you truly feel, and if you recognize, as I think he does, I think he's a hawk and I wouldn't want him in that spot, but he understands the importance of Ukraine from a strategic point of view, what it means to our national security. If that's what he cares about, he should be there front and center, not worrying about selling books.
Let's review some of the Republican complaints during the public impeachment inquiry. They said that all of the previous testimony was done in the basement, in the dark, away from the public. They claimed, and the president has claimed, he wasn't allowed witnesses, he was not allowed lawyers. Merit to that?
First of all, there are over 120 members who could go down there and watch. Almost half of them were Republicans. So they called them secret, but they were all there, and the depositions took place, and the transcripts were released. So it's hard to make that case. Previous investigations into impeachment took place by a special counsel, and people forget those initial special counsel interviews were depositions. They were in secret. This Department of Justice under this president refused a special counsel, so we were forced to do, through the Intelligence Committee, operate through Chairman Schiff in this process. This is their doing.
EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland said in his testimony there was a quid pro quo, but the Republicans, as I listened to them during the inquiry, seemed to feel that they had a victory in getting him to say, but the president did not say to him there is a quid pro quo. Do they have a point?
I think you go back to the obvious. What did the president say in the White House transcript? He laid out the quid pro quo. His chief of staff laid out the quid pro quo in front of the press on live TV. And all Sondland did was to say the same thing. He did say that in the conversation he had with him, which was the day the announcement came out that we'd be investigating a quid pro quo. So then the president finds it in his mind that maybe he should say no quid pro quo, and then he goes out and directs him and others to do exactly that. Is part of the scheme, a quid pro quo.
So do you think the public is listening? Do you think the public is as involved in what's happening in Washington as you all are?
Well, of course not. It would be hard to imagine that they would. Although something like 12 to 14 million people were watching is certainly the attention there. I don't know how to do it better than we did. This isn't meant to be put out for its entertainment value. I compared part of what the Republicans did to a bad reality TV show, but it's not what this is. But it's extraordinarily important. It's the President of the United States muscling a critical ally for personal gain, soliciting a bribe. The fact that, what if some say, well, it's not polling well. The fact is something was wrong. I have to live with myself, and if I think something's wrong, you have to investigate.
In the Democratic caucus, are reports true that there is division on your own side of the aisle, that there are non-urban Democratic lawmakers who aren't as comfortable, there are more conservative Democratic lawmakers, that there's a split in your ranks? Is there?
Look, I don't know that any caucus has unanimity on any issue, but when this came to the floor the first time, the vote on whether or not we should proceed with the impeachment inquiry, we lost one Democratic vote. I think you give this time, you let people come to their own decision. For me, it was different. It was almost 3 years ago that I was in our briefings in our SCIF, and someone said, we also believe that the Russians are attempting to influence the upcoming November election. And it's like, wow. So I think I've had a ringside seat and been involved in the most important investigation of our lifetime, and that includes Watergate. It's very hard for me not to look at all that evidence. The fact that the special counsel said that there were 11 times this president obstructed the investigation. The only reason he wasn't indicted was because the DOJ doesn't allow.
You started your political career in the 44th Ward with John Merlo and Bernie Hansen. You were a Cook County State's Attorney.
Defense attorney.
Sorry. A Cook County Defense Attorney, correct. That's a good correction. You were a Cook County Commissioner.
No.
Did any of that prepare you for this ringside seat?
You know, absolutely. It was the best training I could have had.
The 44th Ward was?
Going to the Lakeview Citizens Council meetings for, what, 5,000 times, where you get tough questions on a nightly basis, dealing with a first chair state's attorney who are far better adversaries than Devin Nunes and Jim and the other gang that I have to deal with on an ongoing basis. So I think that prepared me, recognizing that the job here is to convince the public, the true trier of fact, the jury, not the Senate, and I think it served me well. Once you've dealt with Chicago politics, it doesn't get much tougher in D.C.
Is the acrimony real, or when Devin Nunes steps back and you step back, is there kind of camaraderie and backslapping, or is there a genuine chill in your air?
Almost 11 years, there would be heated moments, and then it would settle back into some sort of camaraderie and norm. This is different. This has gotten to an entirely different level. And to an extent, I think part of that's reflecting where the American people are. As polarized as we are, perhaps the greatest degree of polarization since the Civil War, in some respects, in a sad way, what members are doing is reflecting what the public wants them to do. And unfortunately, that pushes away from compromise. But I'd like to think we'll get there.
So you get some turkey, and then you head back, and we will see if there are more witnesses to be called.
We'll see my family, play some hockey, get back to normal.
All right. Congressman Mike Quigley, thank you for being here.
Anytime. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.